Hey everyone, I got the floor all leveled in here. Today I'll be doing a few tips on blocking, which you can see I've already got started on. For anyone wondering on the floor, the highest point of change I had was probably on this side, where the new joists are over an inch taller than the old joists. Now this here is the block I'm referring to. It goes between the two joists in order to keep those joists from flexing or rotating on each other, from bowing in and out. It's also common to see sometimes, especially with older houses, but you see an X brace instead of a block. I'm not sure if there's any advantages to one over the other, but usually I think it's easier just to cut a block and put it in there. I've set this up here just as an example with some lath, but this is something I commonly see with blocking, where you take a block here and a block here and you offset them from each other so you can put nails in through the joist and into the block into the next bay, and then nails in over here for this one. The reason why I won't be doing it that way, and I'll be doing it all straight and in line with each other, is actually pretty simple. It's because nails typically come no longer than 3.5 inches. And this right here is 3.5 inches. This whole thing is 3.5 inches. So I wouldn't have a way of taking a nail with a nail gun and putting it through that way into this block. I've come up with a different way, which is to actually use pocket holes into the block with the pocket hole jig. And it does a good job. And then I secure that to the joist with actually just a 3-inch screw. Even though it's not necessary, I usually like to put a block underneath where two seams of a piece of subfloor will meet up. So that's what I did here. I laid it out so that it is perpendicular to that joist there. When it comes time to do the subfloor, that's where I'll start my first sheet at. And I actually measured out to this wall here. It's common in older houses to not have straight walls at all. But I measured a distance where I could get to that wall within 2 sheets. If I measured correctly, then I'd be able to get to this wall with my second sheet and trim off no more than 1 inch from the edge of that sheet. If there's any bowing in the wall, or parts where it's not straight at all, which is likely because it's an old house, then I'll still have enough sheet left over to meet up to that wall. Another thing that can happen when you don't measure like that beforehand is you could end up in a situation where you get over to here and then you have your 2 sheets taken up and you might have like a 3-inch gap here, and then you have to cut a 3-inch wide piece of flooring, which is not ideal. Another thing to note with this subfloor is although it's a 4x8 sheet, which means it should be 48 inches across, that's actually 48 inches from the edge there to the edge of that tongue there. The tongue sticks out 1/2 inch. So the top deck of the floor is actually, not sure if you can see there, it's 47.5 inches. I'm going a little overkill on these blocks here. Like I said, you don't need a block underneath each seam, but it's just something I like to do. And since that top deck is 47.5 inches, the center point of this block here to the center point of that block there is actually 47.5 inches, not 48. The other helpful point I have for measuring between these joist bays is to actually cut a block. Now this one's 6 inches long, and I actually wrote on the back side 3 inches wide. That's for any narrow spots. Cutting a block like that makes it so you don't have to take a tape measure and try to get a measurement, or even to do like what I usually do is where I mark here and then I measure over to my mark, none of that's necessary with the block, and it can actually slow you down quite a bit. If you have a measurement that's off and then you cut your board and bring it back and it's off by 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch, that just slows you down. So what I like to do here, put my block there and then just measure over to my block. So I got 8 1/4, add 6, 14 1/4. This last one's pretty tight. I don't own a right angle drill, but I did use one of these. It's just a right angle adapter. You can drive screws into tight areas using one of these. That's the completed row all the way across. So now combined with the other row here, I got 2 rows in. It's a bit overkill, but I'm going to go ahead and do a 3rd row right here, which I already got the blocks cut for. A couple of these ended up just a little bit high, so I'm going to come back through with the planer, take those down a little bit. That row is completely done now, which makes 3 completed rows of blocking done. So that's going to be a nice strong support for this subfloor after I get the sheets in. If you want to keep following along with this project, please consider subscribing.